I see a lot of people in the horse world who are afraid to hand feed their horses for fear of creating a cookie monster. Never hand feeding is probably the easiest solution to this problem, but if you enjoy hand feeding your horse, or if you are interested in clicker training, here is a helpful guide for how to hand feed while maintaining safe boundaries with your horse. Let's start with some helpful tips on how to give treats. I keep my hand flat while having just enough cup to it that the treats do not roll off, and my fingers are together and uncurled so they don't end up in my horse's mouth. Then I press my hand firmly against the horse's lips so they do not feel the need to grab for or chase my hand in order to get the treats. When using clicker training, we usually want to mark for a behavior and reward for a position. In simple terms, this means that we use our clicker or marker word while the horse is performing the behavior we want, and reward the horse when they are in the treat receiving position. In this video, you will see that Loki performs the behavior that I am asking for, and then once I mark, he is going to come up to where he is standing with his head on straight before I give him the reward. In this example, Lily is already pretty much in the position, so all I need her to do is when I mark, she stays in that position for me to give her the treat. This is not a clicker training tutorial, however, so we are going to focus on creating a treat receiving position. The very basic idea of treat manners is that we never give a treat when the horse is pushing into our space, has their nose in our pocket, or is reaching for our hands. If we are using primarily negative reinforcement, we can just push the horse out of our space and skip step one. But for those of us who want to be more positive, I'm going to start at the beginning by placing a barrier between myself and the horse. This is called protected contact. For these videos, I am going to use a stall with an open front. I'm standing away from him so that he cannot reach me and waiting for him to stop pushing into my space. The moment that he does that, I'm going to give him a treat, as you just saw. I will repeat this multiple times until he no longer shows an interest in pushing into my space in order to get treats. As soon as he is consistently not pushing into my space, I will shake my bag, and if he maintains his manners, I reward him with another treat. If you are planning on using clicker training, then this is an excellent opportunity to establish your mark, which is the sound you use to tell an animal they have done well and food is coming. I will mark when they are in the position that I want and then give the food. I do this until I start shaking the bag, and after that point, treat manners are treat manners and they never receive food unless they are using their treat manners. Again, this is not a positive reinforcement tutorial, so I am not going to go into all of the science, but since I did bring up marks, I do want to mention a few important details. The first is that your mark will only be effective if your horse receives a treat pretty much every time they hear it. Sounds usually work best like a clicker, whistle, or I use a vocal click that is distinct from any of my cues. You heard it in the beginning of this video. You can use a marker word, but I would avoid things you may say around them like yes, good, okay, etc. I usually tell people to use something in a foreign language. One syllable is best, although I do have a student who uses uno and one who uses bien successfully. Also, marks can be visual, so make sure that you do not do the same thing with your hands every time, or that may be what your horse associates with receiving the food instead of the sound. In the beginning of this video, you may have heard me mark and then say good. That is not ideal, but I don't worry about that much because my horse does not always receive a treat when I say good, and they do always receive a treat after my mark. If you have a horse like Luna who figures out where the treats are coming from and gets really distracted by your hands going into that space, you can always remove your hands from that space when she's looking at you and then bring them back. And if that draws her attention back to the bag or your pocket, then you just take your hands away again until she is able to ignore your hand going into the treat pouch. Just like everything else we do with horses, what we do on one side we want to do on the other. As you can see, Loki struggles a little bit more on this side, so I'm going to step out of the way so that he cannot push on me, and wait patiently for him to figure out his treat manners before I give him a treat. Every time he looks at me, I take my hand out of the bag and wait for him to solve the problem on his own, and then when he figures it out, I am going to go ahead and reward him. Every horse is going to have a side that's a little bit easier for them than the other. As you can see with this horse, the left side is easier for her than the right was. With Loki, it was the other way around. I did both of these horses in the same order, so both of them started on their right and moved to their left, and yet Loki struggled more with the left side and Luna struggled more with the right side. You can see in a moment that Luna gets distracted by something that's going on in the barn, and so I just hold my treat out here and wait for her to figure out that it's there and that she can take it when she's ready. Once the horse understands this, you can remove the barrier between you. Or if you are using negative reinforcement, you can start in free contact. When you are sharing space with your horse, you are going to do the same things as before. I start by giving treats when the horse is standing still, not leaning or stepping towards me, and not looking for treats in my pockets. Cute faces are always allowed. If you're using negative reinforcement, you can use whatever cue you would usually use to back them out of your space before giving them a treat when they are in the correct position. I will also continue to reward them for being in the correct position. In that case, I didn't reward her right away because she did step forward with a back foot, but when she stops trying to move forward, I will reward her. Eventually, I will no longer reward her for that lean. But as she is currently struggling, I want to give her the opportunity to get reinforced. You do want to establish your treat manners in front of and on both sides of your horse. If I am trying not to use negative reinforcement and the horse makes a mistake, I will place all treats back in the bag, and if the horse is not being too insistent, I will wait. If they are going for the treats, I will wave my hand gently in between their nose and the treats to remind them that that won't work. If at any point in time I feel I am in danger, I will defend myself enough to safely leave the space, then go back to placing a barrier between us and make sure the horse understands and is not frustrated before trying again carefully. Finally, once you have established treat manners, it is important to maintain them. Remember, no matter what you are doing, treats only come when the horse is out of your space and keeping their head on straight or slightly away from you. At first it may be hard, but pretty soon it will be easy, and your horse will just do it without you having to think that hard about it.